I'm Helene Oberman, Managing Director of Interior Design Magazine, and I'd like to welcome you to Product Tour. This is our series that delves into the products and trends grabbing the industry and in real time looking at the minds behind the design. Today, we are here to define what sets Sunbrella Contract apart from other textile brands in the market and to educate the design community about the evolution of the brand. While almost 10 years strong, it stems from a legacy of mindful manufacturing and design-driven product development. And with that, I'd love to welcome Catherine Minervini, A&D Regional Manager for Sunbrella Contract. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me, Helene, and thank you to Interior Design Magazine. We're really excited to be a part of this.
No, absolutely. I mean, we still want to be able to connect. It's a shame we can't all be in person, but you know, thank you for the virtual world, correct?
Yeah, I think we're all getting kind of good at this now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think it would be really great to almost start at the beginning, right? And so, you know, as I mentioned, Sunbrella Contract really does have a long legacy. While the brand itself might be sort of in its infancy from where it stems from, it really does come from sort of a long line of products and of a great company and parent company.
Yes, so Sunbrella Contract is part of Sunbrella, and Sunbrella is a brand that was launched by Glen Raven in 1961. And Glen Raven has a very long history of textiles. They started in about 1880 and or I guess in the late 50s, they started to really look at how to reinvent the cotton awning. And that technology is how Sunbrella was built and launched. So I like to point that out because I don't like the community to think that Glen Raven purchased Sunbrella and now owns it. It really is their brand that they created. And I think that's really important because they have so many different facets of textiles. And so to be able to constantly come up with new technologies and invent and launch new innovations is really important. So Sunbrella was really a solution to cotton awnings and how could they create a product that would be longer lasting. But a couple little fun facts. They did invent panty legs, which are now pantyhose, so that's pretty cool. And during the World Wars, they were one of the biggest producers of parachute fabric. So I think that those are always really interesting. It really kind of shows their legacy of textiles and innovation and kind of always pushing things to the next level. So I think that's always like a fun tidbit.
Well, I always think another fun fact, another tidbit that you didn't mention was that Glen Raven is actually on the moon, correct?
That's correct. When the man went on the moon, they put the flag that is up on the moon was made from a Glen Raven facility.
Well, we all know that Glen Raven and the Sunbrella brands have really weathered a lot of issues over the last 140 years, whether it's a world war, and they've always really been able to maintain their integrity and their service to the design community and really to the greater world at large. And a lot of that comes from this mantra that you have of mindful manufacturing. And what does that exactly mean to Sunbrella and Sunbrella Contract?
I think it's something that's really part of our heritage. We've always had a strong focus on sustainable manufacturing. And so we're really looking from fiber to fabric. We're really watching that whole cycle and looking to see where we can make improvements and how we can work with outside vendors for raw materials. So quality, what are their practices, and really looking at taking a holistic approach to all of these different facets when it comes to mindful manufacturing or manufacturing in general, to make sure that we're very thoughtful, we're very mindful, and we are engaging in sustainable practices whenever we absolutely can. So it's really something we've been doing for quite some time, whether it's reducing waste or sending no waste to the landfill, using solar array panels. So we have them in a couple of our facilities in the US, or working on something like a Recycle My Sunbrella program.
No, I think you guys really are attentive to the manufacturing process and really to its effect on the environment overall. And I know that's a real big tenet and a brand mission for Sunbrella and Sunbrella Contract.
also all of our Sunbrella awning and upholstery fabrics are solution dyed. So even in that process alone, it's a given that there's a lot less water being used than conventional dyeing processes. So, and then of course, creating a long-lasting fabric so that hopefully it lasts in the marketplace a lot longer than just being thrown out or falling apart. So I think that all of these different processes and all of these different attributes really really give us our sense of mindful manufacturing, creating a very high quality product that's going to last.
And on trend.
And on trend, of course.
Do you also have something in place for sort of the consumers and the end users to also help with the recycling program?
We do. We have a Recycle My Sunbrella. That is made up of pre and post consumer waste. So remember, we're working with so many different channels out there, whether it's an umbrella company and it's an outdoor furniture company, it's an indoor furniture company. And so when those manufacturers are producing their end products, right, their final products, any of that waste, they're able to send to us. And then we use that waste to recycle. So a lot of it is on the pre-consumer part, but we do offer it to consumers. So if they have a sofa at home and they want to toss it, they can recycle that fabric and send it to us.
Okay. So it's interesting because I always think Sunbrella contract, it all begins what one might consider just sort of a simple fiber, but really within that fiber, it represents a lot of inherent traits that really help define the brand.
Yes. And this, there's a couple things here, right? So that's where one of the biggest questions we get is what makes this bleach cleanable? What makes this UV and fade resistant? And we always take it back to the fiber, because I think where people get a little confused is they think, and there might be other companies out there that are producing a finish, but we're not doing that. It really starts at the fiber level. So the fade resistancy, the UV and fade resistance, the bleach cleanability, and the mold and mildew resistancy is all because of the fiber. And so it's our proprietary formulation, which we work closely with vendors to produce that. So it's always consistent. We're always looking at the quality of that, and it never changes. And so we say from fiber to finish, and that's really kind of that's our motto.
So it's interesting because you kind of touched on it, because obviously Sunbrella has a history of being an outdoor textile brand. But I think this conversation, we really want to help change sort of the focus for the design community and really have them understand that Sunbrella contract was really sort of founded to help meet the performance of commercial interiors, correct?
That's absolutely correct. We've been able to take all of this technology and all this innovation that we know really from that awning. Let's go back to the early 60s, in 1961 when it was launched. It started out in awnings, and we parlayed into from that we were able to get into the marine industry. So boat covers and bimini covers and boat cushion covers. And then we took that and went into outdoor furniture, like patio furniture. And then we started really looking at the interior, so on the residential side. And then it wasn't until about 2011 where we actively went after the contract market and said, what do we need to develop in order to play in this market? And so what I love about that story is that it's just taking that innovation and refining it and looking at what you need to add and what do you need to play in that market. And it's gone from all these different markets. So we have all this knowledge from each one of them, what works, what doesn't work, and what can we make better. For the contract side, we had to look at a lot of different things, right? We had to look at, first of all, aesthetic. You can't have like a scratchy, outdoor, stiff, 100% acrylic fiber for an indoor commercial interior. So we had to really look at what do we need to develop to get refined patterns and textures and looking like a soft hand. It has to be sophisticated, right? These are the things that designers expect from a textile for commercial interiors. And then we had to go through really rigorous testing according to the ACT performance guidelines. So we've always been a high-performing product, but for commercial interiors, as we know, we really need to hit flammability testing and seam slippage, abrasions, right? That's always a really big question for us. What are the abrasions on this? And that's really something we are really trying to shift that conversation to not just thinking of us for outdoor, but going to us first for an indoor outdoor fabric that really all of these. I mean, it's a bigger package of what you really need for this market.
Well, certainly performance, to your point, is really key to what is happening in commercial interiors. But do you feel like there's a shift in the conversation, especially with your clients now, given this specific time period? And are they looking for, more specific attributes than just performance?
Yeah, I also think, I was thinking about this earlier when I was making notes for today, and I was thinking, after a while, some of these words become buzzwords, right? And I think what's happening now is designers are really wanting to know more about what high performance means, right? Because we're even using it on the residential side, right? On the consumer side. So they start to get a little overused, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm just saying that we start to use all these buzzwords, right? And it's bleach cleanable. Well, what does that exactly mean? And something I always like to say is, well, you really could probably get most stains out with soap and water. The bleach, it is, you can use bleach on our fabrics, but it really, I think that's where the conversations are going now. They're a little bit more nuanced, right? So we're out there teaching designers about not just abrasions, not just about 100,000 double rubs, but does it meet pill standards? And what is the cleanability factor here? What does that mean that it's bleach cleanable? And what about, especially now, what about other disinfectants and cleaners? How do they affect your fabric? So the conversation has gotten a little richer, a little bit more robust around that phrase, high performance. And so I think that designers are, even though we have all this information to hand out to them, they're asking those questions now. And I think that's sort of the difference. It's not so much that the priorities have changed, it's understanding each one of those priorities a little deeper, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. And I think it's interesting because you guys have a product and you are a brand that has always had those attributes that I think are really important right now and very key to like the conversations that are happening for how designers are going to design spaces moving forward. And I think you're just in that process, obviously, of educating that, like, you've already been there and you've already been a great service to the community. But, high performance, or is it cleanability, or if it,
Well, I think, to your point, we haven't had to change anything. Right? We might have to communicate it differently. So now designers are asking all kinds of questions about antimicrobial and how is it cleaned and how can it be disinfected and how can it be sanitized? I mean, all these words are different, right? So we have it all. We already have it, right? We haven't had to change our technology or add anything to it. We are always looking at different innovations, like innovative technologies to add to it, depending on what the market needs are, what the market might be asking for. Or maybe it's something we have in development from another industry that we're seeing, can this be used over here, and what does that look like? And what does the design community need from this attribute that might enhance a fabric? So that's something we're always looking at. But I think that that we've had all this technology, we've had all this knowledge, and it's always been available. It's just that we're disseminating it a little bit differently now. And that's what's really cool. I mean, I think that's part of the collaborative process, and I think we're using the word collaborative a little differently too. In other words, to me, collaborative means you ask questions, I'm asking questions, and we're both vetting different ideas and processes and product information, and how do we, as a brand and as a manufacturer, how do we really support the brand partners that we make product for? How do we support the design community on the information that they need? And so we don't just know that, we have to ask a lot of questions. We have to go back to our internal teams and say, this is what we need out there, and this is how we have to package it. So it's a pretty interesting time. And like I said, everybody's sort of diving in a little deeper to some of these conversations, and everything has a little bit of a different meaning, right? They're always been there, but they just have different meanings.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely shifted from, maybe more of a monologue from a company being like, this is who we are, and this is what we offer. To your point, it's it really needs to be a dialogue.
Exactly.
And I think because especially we're sort of in a little bit of a great unknown, because we're in this gathering information phase, so that I think moving forward, we're going to need to know whether it's the manufacturers, whether it's the designers, whether it's the media. Like, I think we all need to, first of all, be completely open with, and like, no one should withhold information. Like, we really should use this opportunity to really explore what's happening in the design community, in the world at large, and figure out together how we can together and move forward. And so ultimately that we come up with the best design. And
like, there's no stupid question, there's no stupid idea, right? It's like, let's try it. Let's put it out there this way. Let's see what comes back. They might ask another question. And so we're all kind of inspiring each other with information. It's pretty interesting.
It definitely is. But I know you touched on collaboration, certainly. And, you know, Sunbrella Contract is really at the heart of who you are great collaborators, because you have these amazing partnerships with textile brands with whom you work, and really design these great collections that have all the inherent traits that are very much Sunbrella and Sunbrella Contract, and sort of married with some of these sort of aesthetics that each of your partners bring to these collections.
Right. So we're set up very differently. We are our own brand, but we also partner with 27 different textile brands. And so we're making product for them based on what their needs are. So that the collaborative experience there is, we manufacture the product, all their designs, they're proprietary to them. So it's really about what their needs are for their collection, their brand, whatever their gaps are, wherever they might want to offer an indoor-outdoor product or a very high-performing product. So we have those conversations with them, and then we produce product for them. So I think we have over 1,500 SKUs out there across 27 different brands. And that's been really great, because those brands are inspiring us, right? They're asking us, well, what else can you do? What else can you make? Can you make this texture? Can you make this pattern? It's forced us to expand our color bank. And again, like I was saying earlier, really figure out how to create these sophisticated, refined patterns that the commercial interior design industry really expects. So that's how that works. Our job as Sunbrella Contract is to help the design community navigate where the brand is, who's got products, and how they can find us. So that's really where our team comes in, and we're really here as a support to all of our brand partners, teaching them more about our fiber, our manufacturing processes, and so it arms them with some more information to go out to the design community.
Why don't we go through some of these great partnerships that you do have?
So we work with 27 different textile brand partners, as I just said, and we really value these relationships. Some of them would be, we work with Stinson, Carnegie, Wolf Gordon, Design Tex, Meyer Fabrics, Maharam. In fact, we have some new products just launched the past few months with Carnegie. I think we have a product called Parade with Carnegie, and Wanderlust with Pollock. And then in Neocon, or virtual Neocon, I guess, Stinson is featuring their new Balance collection, which is made with our Assure technology. And so that is a new environmentally, sustainably developed, fluorine-free finish.
You know, someone like Stinson, and I know with the new Assure technology, you know, maybe the mindset is it's for the healthcare industry or health and wellness, but are you just seeing in general, and maybe it's too early on in your conversations with your designers, are they looking to sort of that industry to help lead them into what may be happening in terms of workplace or hospitality and some of these other sort of contract sectors?
Yeah, I think, Assure was really developed as a solution for a healthy hospital initiative. And so that, yes, that was the inspiring, defining moment for that. But I think you're right. I think that we're really going to start to look at cues from the healthcare industry to help some of these other spaces, and what does it mean as far as visually what they look like, I think cleaning programs are going to get much more aggressive and robust and frequent. And I think that's where designers are really going to rely on high-performing products. I mean, there is the bleach cleanability part of it, of course, but also they're going to have to do a lot more research on different types of disinfectants and surface cleaners that are out there. So I think that, yes, I think that something else that I've heard is that designers are looking at clean air programs with HVAC systems. And so there's really this holistic approach to looking at a space from air to a textile. And I think what's great for us is we've had, like I said, we've had this knowledge. We haven't had to change much, but we are looking at different types of technologies to incorporate or as added benefits, such as something like Assure. But yeah, I think the healthcare industry is definitely going to spend some time influencing a lot of decisions in every space.
So what trends have you been seeing in the marketplace? And do you feel that those will change throughout the next year, given the current situation in the world?
Well, obviously cleanability has been a big hot topic, and it's always a hot topic, but I think that we're really digging into that conversation a little deeper, right? So we talked about this a little bit earlier. We're learning more about, we've got all this knowledge to share with the design community, but also they're asking us a lot more specific and nuanced questions. And so we're making sure that we have all of that information to share with them, or we might have to go get it and repackage that. So that's one thing. Depending on the space, the designer, the end user, antimicrobial is another kind of thing that seems to come up. Some designers are like, no, we don't specify anything antimicrobial for our space, and some people want that. It depends on the client and the end user. And then again, this is something that we're having conversations around. When is it right? And helping designers vet these applications and understand what they're asking, right? I think that the combinations and the offerings are endless for us, so it's always hard, depending on the market segment, what designers might be looking at right now. Like I said earlier, maybe finishing up projects that were all in progress, keeping the balls rolling and kind of moving along there. And then something that of course, our products are UV and fade resistant. And I think where this is very important is that I think natural light has been another big, in some places, considered an amenity in a workplace or a healthcare facility or even hospitality. I don't think that's going to go away. I think natural light is going to consistently be incorporated. It really does help with the wellness of a space, the well-being of a space. If in the workplace they have access to natural light, that's considered an amenity in some instances. And so that's where designers are really going to need products that can stand up. So it's great for the environment, for the workers and the people inhabiting those spaces, but it's going to wreak havoc on those furnishings. And so I think that we're looking at more fade resistant products in general. And then something else that I think is a trend, or will continue to be a trend, is really indoor activities used in outdoor spaces. So it could be a meeting space, it could be a learning space like a classroom, especially in areas of the country where climate is not an issue. But I think we're even going to see it pop up during parts of the year in places like the Northeast or in the Midwest, where we can use open air spaces as part of feeling healthy and also feeling safe, right? People have to feel safe getting back. I know in our own town here, they're looking at closing some of the streets downtown so that restaurants can get the capacity up for their guests. And so using these outdoor venues as real indoor activities. Of course, we have awning and shade material, but we also have upholstery. So they can still get that same sense of warmth and a tactile kind of experience, but also not worry about. So I think that these are some of the things, these are the trends that we're going to see in the marketplace.
That's great. Well, I definitely see it even here in New York City, where like they are having those same conversations about how to bring things outside, especially as we move into the summertime. So it will be interesting to see sort of the long term moving forward, and how designers are sort of shifting their approach to design, and certainly taking indoor activities to the outdoors. What were the big takeaway from obviously our conversation is that this needs to be an ongoing dialogue with the community as a whole, and that we all have to sort of educate and work together, and that, you know, we all offer services that can help sort of move us forward in a way, and that all starts with a simple conversation, which we've had today. And I really appreciate your time, and
Thank you.
Really telling everyone about what Sunbrella Contract is as a brand, what you stand for, what are the traits, and really that you have always been there, and that like you really are here to help support the community and what their needs are. Because right now, obviously, we know so much is changing for what the new sort of commercial market's going to look like.
Yeah, and we really value our relationship with the design community, all of our brand partners, and they're going to teach us as much as we're going to teach them. And I think that's what's going to help us kind of get through this, and also realize some all kinds of new things. I mean, something we talk about, we have a CEU called Tying in Textiles to Meet Demands in a Changing World, and this was actually designed right. It was approved right before everything happened with COVID, but something at the end of it really talks a lot about where fabrics are going to go, and fabric technology is going to go in the future. And so it'll be interesting to see if some of that sort of pushes it along a little quicker. And so I think we're all in this together between our brand partners and designers asking, and us coming up with new technologies. How do those all sort of converge together, and where does it take us? So, you know, new innovations always come out of, new things are always invented out of real tragedies, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it is a silver lining if there is ever one, correct?
Yes.
No, but I think it'll make things better for the future. And, you know, I really appreciate that. And to our audience, you know, certainly check out Sunbrella Contract, all their new offerings that they have with all their great partners, whether it's Wolf Gordon or Prolic. And Catherine, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Helene. It was so good to see you. Say hello to everyone at Interior Design.
Absolutely. And, you know, keep Asbury Park warm for me.
Oh, I'll do my best. Thank you. You have to come visit.
I know.
The smartphone. How did we ever live without it? And now it has become a powerful tool for all you designers and architects. Interior Design is excited to introduce Launch, a new feature right inside the magazine that's built around the smartphone. Launch allows for the speed and efficiency of a digital platform while providing the inspiration and curation of a magazine. So you may ask, well, how does it work? Just point your phone at a launch code and it will activate a powerful, intuitive user interface. One in which you can instantly select from multiple actions, all at the touch of a button. Do you want to, say, download a spec sheet? How about contact a rep? Or just get a sample? Launch will help you discover the newest products in the market and easily take action. Now, keep your eye out for it. We are loving Launch.
Hello and welcome. I'm Rebecca Thienes. I'm the market editor at Interior Design, and I'd like to welcome you to Product Tour. This is our series where we get to visit the trends and talk about what's grabbing the industry and also to meet the minds behind the design. So today I'd like to welcome our friends from Metroflor. And I'll start first with Russ Rogg. Russ, you're the president of Metroflor. Welcome. How are you today?
Very good, Rebecca. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning.
Fantastic. And we're also joined by the director of design, Robert Langstaff. Robert, how are you?
I'm fine, Rebecca. How are you? And thank you for including us in this.
Of course. Happy to have you. So I thought we'd start with an overview of Metroflor. I know a little bit about the company. I know that founded in 1912 and in upstate New York and selling building materials, distributing building materials. So maybe Russ, could you tell us a little bit more about the company? Give us a brief overview.
Sure. So Metroflor Corporation, as you first mentioned, specializes in resilient flooring, particularly LVT, luxury vinyl planks and tiles. We are one division of a larger organization that is referred to as HMTX, which really is encompassing a number of divisions, if you will, that sell similar products to different channels. That is resilient products to different channels. The Metroflor division, for which Robert and I are responsible, predominantly focuses on luxury vinyl plank and tile that is sold through independent wholesale distribution throughout the United States. That in turn ends up at either retail or residential business or through contractors for commercially oriented business. We've been around a long time, as you pointed out, the organization, if you will, for over 100 years. We're privately held by a family with the last name Stone. And it's quite a history and quite a legacy that we're proud to be a part of.
Great. Well, typically we would have the pleasure of meeting in person. And likely it would be in Chicago during NeoCon, the trade show for the design industry for contract and commercial interiors. And I wish we were there, but here we are virtual. And I wonder if we were together and we were in your space in the Mart, what would you be introducing this year? What's your new product?
Yeah, we would be focusing, and it is a shame that we're not there to meet one another live and in person. We have enjoyed, participating in NeoCon for the past number of years, and it is a shame that we can't do it this year. We would have been focusing on a particular, I guess, product evolution. And if I could maybe take a minute just to explain what I mean by that evolution. About 2 years ago, Metroflor introduced a commercially oriented LVT product line that we called Deja New. And it's a glue-down, dry-back, luxury vinyl plank and tile collection that is, of course, recommended for and designed for commercial applications. We evolved that collection and began to incorporate what I would refer to as a different installation methodology. So rather than the product being glued down, we actually began to adopt a technology incorporating the use of magnets. So it's such that a magnetic underlayment is rolled or laid out on the floor in a loose lay fashion. And then on the back side of our LVT, we incorporate ferrite powder or iron powder, and that allows the product to become compatible with the magnet. It dramatically excels or accelerates, I should say, installation time. There's no need for adhesive. It allows you to install the product over a variety of different subfloor conditions. And it's really just an extremely fast and innovative way to install a product in, as I said, commercial environments. This year at NeoCon, had we been there, we were going to evolve that yet another step further with a program that we're calling Metroforms. And Metroforms is taking those Deja New product line, the SKU assortment that I alluded to earlier. And this may not be the best way to showcase it under the conditions that we're facing today with this video interview, but we're offering a number of different shapes. In this case, this is just a hexagon, but we're offering chevrons and some unique patterns that allows a designer to visualize something that would typically be pretty complex or complicated to install, but now using the technology of pre-cutting these unique shapes, incorporating the ferrite powder on the back that makes it compatible with the magnet. It is simply such that installers can put together, as I said, would be a normally complicated project, but do it in a fraction of the time with great consistency.
I love that. So it's called attraction, correct? The magnetic component?
Yeah.
So
the
that's
magnetic,
great technology. So you're able to kind of take something that was a little difficult to install or could take a person a longer time to install and make it more easy.
exactly.
The shapes are so fantastic. So Robert, I'm guessing you were a key leader in the development of a product like this. How do you guys come up with the shapes and forms? Because as you said, there's some more kind of almost traditional patterns like the chevrons. There's 3 different types of chevrons. The chevron weave is really beautiful. It has almost a kind of parquet look to it when it's installed. It has almost a wood grain pattern on it. But there's also some very modern patterns in the collection as well. Triangle and square is really fun. It has a lot of graphic impact when it's installed. So how, Robert, do you go about kind of deciding what shapes and what's your process like? How do you start a project like this?
Well, it was really interesting. When we realized what the possibilities were, we started playing with different shapes and actually started to get a little bit out of hand, as you can imagine, because there are so many different possibilities that we could work with. But in going through that process, we realized that we really needed to keep it simple, and that's why we ended up selecting 12 different basic shapes. And they are basically geometrics. There are 2 different that kind of creates a basket weave. And the idea obviously was, to make it easier. If you give designers, architects too many choices, it becomes counterproductive. And not only for them, but for us as far as supplying. And the shapes that we have are, like you said, they're very recognizable. They're easy to, really easy to install, which was another consideration. You are correct. The chevron and the herringbone have really become popular. It has always been a traditional floor layout in Europe, but at least 5 years ago, I began seeing it being used in high-end applications in the US, in department stores certainly, and in particular in window displays. I saw a lot of innovative uses. So I began talking with Russ. I think that was in part why we started to look at the different shapes.
It's so nice to hear where you get your inspiration from, because that's, I think, really interesting to people, of like how you start a product and how you develop it and where you kind of look to get those ideas. So that's great.
And that's a good point, because oftentimes once a product is introduced, there has already been something that inspired it probably 3 to 5 years before that. There are ideas that I get that I will work on before we go further with it to find out if it's valid. But in addition to the shapes, I think something that's just as important are the designs that we selected. Like Russ said, that the Deja New line is set up for commercial. So it's, we're focusing on retail, hospitality, some office. The patterns that we have selected offer a great way to designate seating areas, wayfinding, very unique, different patterns can be created, in a retail hospitality setting to help direct movement, traffic flow. But the designs that we picked were 3 different wood grains and 3 different, 2 stones, 1 abstract, or 2 abstracts. And the idea is that wood grains still are the driving force when it comes to design selections by designers and architects. So we offered a rather rustic coastal oak, which is kind of a palette look. A smooth oak, which is very clean, very kind of upscaled, modern, contemporary look. And then we have the San Marcos, which is an all-purpose, very comfortable and comfortable design. Woods have always been important, I think, to the consumer, whether it's commercial or residential. There's a connection that people have, whether it's the visual or the conceptual. It's a biophilic connection that makes everyone kind of feel comfortable. It's an easily acceptable product. and certainly it's a sustainable one.
Well, there's great neutrals, and I love that there's the layering of the color as well as with the patterning, like you were saying with the wood grain. But there's also some really bold choices in there. There's poppy, there's the beautiful blue indigo, there's almost an acid green that that I find so beautiful. That one's called kiwi, which is so fun. So you come from a fine arts background. So does that kind of inform your choices when you're looking at colors?
Very much, very much. Color is critical. As much as design, color is critical because that is going to be the first thing that captures one's attention. It's the first thing you see, but seeing what is going on right now is important. We value what is selling, we evaluate what's going on in that particular area. But my responsibility is to see what's coming. And that is where my art background helps me, because I tend to come at it from a slightly different angle, I would think, than possibly other designers, in the sense that I look at a broad range of influences. And again, this goes back to trying to distill down, as I mentioned before, a direction that I feel is important, so that when we come out with designs and colors, we have something that's going to satisfy people that want something now, or they're looking for something new. And we have the right product, right color, right design at the right time.
I want to take it over to Russ to ask a question. Something that Robert mentioned is the ability to use this product as a wayfinding mechanism. I wonder if what's going on with the pandemic and the way that offices will need to be revised in order to make way for more space and better flow among people, if that's something that you've considered, and if this product is something that you would recommend for those situations.
Yeah, I think that's a very intuitive question. Of course, when we developed this product line, and in particular the magnetic capability to install these shapes, it was long before the pandemic dynamic was upon us. So it wasn't something that we could have foreseen. However, it was just interesting. Yesterday, I saw a photograph of one of our offices in the Netherlands, and they had taken the opportunity to put yellow tape and markings on the floor to provide certain distances, of course, with social distancing that we're all now needing to comply with. And it's interesting that you brought this up, because our product line and the ease in which it can be installed and the shapes that we offer, it can in fact maybe create a unique way to accomplish that same objective, that is to mark or annotate locations that have to be kept for social distancing, but maybe do it in a way that is a little more beautiful and a little more attractive, and it doesn't necessarily take away from the installed or the built environment. So it's a very interesting question, and a good one. And it may be something that we have to pursue a little more overtly based on the dynamic that we're all facing these days.
I know that our audience of interior designers and architects are definitely looking to brands to help them in their design process. What kind of tools do you guys offer when designers are looking to make these changes in spaces? Do you have some kind of tool that allows them to kind of create their individualized design plans?
Yeah, I would maybe choose to focus on one new added portal on our website, which can be accessed just simply through metroflorusa.com. And it really ties back into the product that we're spending a fair amount of time discussing today, and that is this Metroflor collection. And it's basically a program called Sketchbox, and it allows a designer to choose any of the 38 colors that we make available in Deja New, and pick the shapes that we've discussed, and then configure them into a particular floor layout. And they can change colors, they can change shapes, they can change layouts. But equally important, it's a practical tool, because you can plug in or enter the dimensions of the space you're designing and planning. And the program will actually calculate the number of pieces or shapes that you might need in each style and each color. So we haven't incorporated the wayfinding possibility that you've just brought to our attention today. Maybe that's something for us to look into in the future. But for someone to visualize, how this product line can really be utilized in an environment, I think we have a great tool to accomplish that. There are, of course, some standard room scenes that are loaded on the site. That could be a waiting room in a hospital environment or a retail store, etc. But it also has the capability for a photograph or a scene to be uploaded to the website, and for that floor that's been laid out or developed by the designer, it can be plugged into that site or into that room scene, so that that you can visually take that to a client to show them how this product might look in the space that you're planning for.
That's fantastic. I know that designers are looking for ways to make it easy on them because they're speccing so many products. So that's a great opportunity for them to play around on that site.
Sure.
I wonder also if we could maybe talk a bit about sustainability and the company, and are there any programs or certifications that you guys have specifically gone after in order to make your practice more sustainable in recent years?
Yeah, I will touch on that for a moment, and Robert, certainly if you have anything to share, please feel free to chime in. We're very proud of our sustainability and transparency journey. I guess I'll describe it as that. A few years ago, we hired a woman by the name of Rochelle Routman to be our Chief Sustainability Officer, and we give her a tremendous amount of credit, I think, for helping us really pioneer some sustainability and transparency initiatives that are unique to the industry and certainly unique to the resilient or luxury vinyl plank and tile industry. A couple of things that I would make note of. We were one of the first, I think, companies to be extremely transparent through the use of a Declare label, which is endorsed and affiliated to the International Living Future Institute. And it ultimately is an ingredients listing or label. We're pulling back any veil or curtain so that we can overtly publish to any audience that's interested exactly the ingredients that make up or go into our products. One thing that as I said, I think we were probably one of the first to do, at least in the resilient category. Taking that a step further, also another program affiliated with the ILFI, which is JUST. And JUST is more of a declaration related to social equity, from how employees are treated, their compensation, their benefits, social equity from male, female, and the list goes on. And we first began with certifying the factories in China that make our product, both of whom have been JUST certified, and then now we've just taken that a step further, where our U.S. offices in Connecticut and Georgia have also been endorsed or have gone through the JUST process. So it's, I like to look at it as not just transparency and sustainability initiatives related to the product itself, but more importantly, how it's made, where it's made, and how the people who make it are in fact treated. And it's basically that entire cycle that we're promoting, because we're proud of what it is that we do. And we're fortunate to have an affiliation with ILFI that provides the vehicles with which we can communicate this out to our audiences. So those are some of the things that we've been focusing on.
I think culture is so important these days, so that's great that you're involved in the JUST 2.0 program and its social transparency label, so that's really wonderful. I want to switch it up a little bit so we can talk more about color, because everyone loves color. Robert, what would you say you're seeing coming down the pipeline? Because you're kind of many years out, I'm imagining, in terms of your development. So what kinds of things are inspiring you, and what colorways are you thinking are coming, or what kinds of aesthetics are you looking into?
I think that one of the important areas to look at is wood grains. Colors are going lighter and more natural. I know the gray trend was really popular, still is, it's being used a lot, but it's evolving. And this is the one thing when you start watching color, is that color does change. I mean, a trend will pop and kind of spark the direction. And that's what we've seen with the gray. And but what we're seeing here, especially or more so in the U.S., is the gray is becoming more weathered. You know, it's moving away from a kind of monochromatic gray to something that a wood grain that has a little bit more meaning. Now, the nice thing about this is that it gives the gray, that particular color, more flexibility for the designer. They can use it in a wider range of other textiles, furniture, you know, carpet colors, rather than being monochromatic. I said it's going lighter, and that is something that I am seeing. It's going more natural. A lot of the wood that is coming in the engineered finishes are a lot more natural in color, more in finish, and a little less, fewer knots, some cracks, maybe much finer, and then a clean look. There seems to be a bit of a split now between what we call rustic and the cleaner, more modern, simplistic type look. Other colors, other trends that are coming, I think, is more use of abstracts and mixing abstracts. So let's say you have a base design of a concrete. The other possibility then is to have a match, you know, by simply overprinting this design with a very subtle type motif. The motif in itself then could have a little bit of variation in color to give it, say, an accent effect. And I see a lot of this kind of blending. This actually was probably promoted more by the carpet tile companies and also the ceramic industry. And it's been very effective. It's a very affordable way of creating an interesting floor, especially within a space. Again, it can be used for wayfinding, defining seating areas, many applications. And kind of going back to something that Russ said earlier, you know, about what they're doing in Europe by laying down the tape, that I cannot emphasize how simple it is to use the Metroflor's technology, this magnetic technology, to play with layouts and to do installations. And I think that this is going to free up designers and installers to try a lot of new interesting looks without a great deal of cost.
I'd like to return to that idea of blending a little bit, because that really struck me about this collection, that there's not only a color tone, but there's also a subtle pattern. Some felt almost like a textile weave, some felt
Yes.
concrete-ish, some felt wood grain, as we've discussed. Does that variation, is that something you specifically recommend for a flooring application? And is that helpful at all in terms of maintenance, or it has some bit of hide to it, so it's not so uniform? So if there's any collection of, you know, dirt, dust, that it's like less obvious, or what is the impetus behind that kind of layering that you guys do?
No, that's a good point. That's very observant on your part. The majority of the designs that we develop are intended to help hide, you know, what marring, dirt, maintenance, things of that nature. From a design standpoint, you know, certainly the textiles are something that are used quite a bit. I think the thing that is really great is that designers today are really looking at some very innovative ways of using combinations, whether it's, you know, wood grain on a tile look, a concrete, or a textile. And that was the purpose of designing and offering what we did, is to offer the widest possible range and color and design to the designer in a reasonable size package without becoming overburdened on our part and too many decisions on their part. Mm-hmm. Yes, I mean, the idea of mixing these, that was the intent, again, that open up some freedom for designers to be able to do some things without, you know, without a lot of complications.
And I just wonder, in terms of the Metroflors, you know, are there certain applications that lend themselves better to some of the patterns, or would you say that it's really just kind of personal preference, or where would you love to see a particular pattern end up?
Well, one of my favorite in the forms is it's what I call the chrysanthemum. It's the starburst pattern, and it has a lot of possibilities. That is the kind of design that you would see in a foyer entryway, where it starts to to radiate out, and then from that point on, then you could establish color variations moving in left or right or center direction to direct people visually and from a functional standpoint. I mean, it's really endless. It's going to be certainly up to the imagination of the designer and architects what they want to do and how they want to do it. The other thing to keep in mind is, since we pulled the majority of the colors and designs from the DesignTV collection, let's just say in a multifamily situation, you could create a herringbone pattern in one area and then use the matching plank in another area of the same color. What this does is it adds uniformity to the space, but it also, because a lot of multifamily spaces now are smaller, this will allow it to give the impression that it's actually larger. So, there are some actual functional aesthetic issues or benefits to this, as well as the just the pure fact of creating some beautiful designs.
It seems like a really versatile collection, which I think is what everyone's looking for. So I appreciate you guys giving us a little rundown. Is there anything I've missed that you feel like is an important point that we want to make about Metroflor and DesignTV and attraction?
I might make one comment, and you kind of spoke to it, Robert, relative to how the designs themselves may be constructed to hide dirt or debris or make care and maintenance easier. There are some other characteristics that are built into the product that also contribute towards these products being very easy to maintain, certainly in commercial environments, and also to not show debris or dirt. And one of them is just the sheen level or gloss level. And we have chosen to use on this collection what we call a super matte, or a very low luster finish on both the wood grain designs as well as the abstracts and stone visuals. And that tends to, in and of itself, hide dirt, dust, debris, and so forth, because you're not taking something that would be dull and transposing it against a glossy floor or something that has shine or vibrancy to it. This way, it just all kind of blends in. So it's just something that helps from a concealing standpoint that might be important for the listeners. And then texture. So every one of our products has a texture on it to one degree or another. There are textures that we refer to in the industry as embossed and registered, which is such that let's say the wood grain embossing or texture that's on the surface of a plank is exactly correlated to the decorative visual that is printed. And it basically creates the appearance of a veneer. It's a very realistic looking texture, certainly we think so. But it's also done in such a fashion where it's not so deep such that it would trap dirt and debris. So there's an art to developing textures that add authenticity and realism, but that are done in such a way where they don't contribute towards making it more difficult to care and maintain for the floor. So those are things that we engineer to the product's performance that are outside of design, but when it's considered in conjunction with design, the result obviously is a beautiful floor. It's easy to maintain and care for for many years.
Fantastic. Well, I just want to thank you both. Thank you for sharing with us Metroflor and giving us an overview of DesignTV and especially the fantastic attraction magnetic technology. Very interesting stuff. And so thank you, Russ, and thank you, Robert. And I want to thank our audience too. And until next time, and thank you for tuning in. Be well, everyone.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Helene Oberman, Managing Director of Interior Design Magazine, and I'd like to welcome you to Product Live. This is our series that looks at the products and trends grabbing the industry and in real time looking at the minds behind the design. Today, we're going to look at two great new introductions, the Buzzy Planter and the Buzzy Jet Standing from our friends at BuzziSpace. And I'd like to welcome Steve Simons, Creative Director and CEO of BuzziSpace, calling all the way from Belgium. Welcome so much for being here. We're so excited to have you on.
Thank you.
So I have to say, as a company, BuzziSpace seems to have always had its pulse or its finger on the pulse of what is happening in workplace design. I know when you started the company in 2007, I mean, you obviously saw a very specific need in terms of what was happening in the office setting. Can you sort of explain the driving force of why you just started BuzziSpace and obviously the focus on acoustical products?
Yes, absolutely. So the reason why we started BuzziSpace was when we started it, at the same time we had another company, and it was called TechnoSpace, where we did the traditional partition systems for offices, the wall systems, drywalling, but also a lot of glass walls. And in the beginning, it was only drywalls with a door and a little glass panel, and it evolved to a complete glass fishbowl, where acoustics became very, very irritating for people. There was a lot of reverberation, there was a lot of reflections of noise, so people had a problem. For our customers, we went to the market ourselves to find, or to try to find solutions which were like efficient, good looking, and also affordable. And in the end, we realized that nothing was there on the market available, so the only option for us was to start producing it ourselves. But we wanted to give it from day one an extra twist, and that was thanks to our initial designer, Sas Adriases, who came up with the felt, which was 100% recycled PET bottles in 2007, I have to say. It was never used for interior or for any product that was visible, because it came from the automotive industry already, but it was put in between two sheets of metal. And we were the first also to bring it as a finished product with a stable color and color set, and then from there on we started our company.
I mean, I really honestly feel like you guys were the first to really think about acoustical and felt, and you know, it's obviously as the world of workplace design was really shifting to open plan, it became more and more necessary.
Mm-hmm.
I love the fact that you guys have this mantra, which is happy and healthy workspaces. What exactly does that mean for you and for the Buzzy brand?
I think it's a very important, and if not the only and the most important fact about our company. We try to have fun, to be fun, and also to make sure that people are able to buy fun products for their offices. But on top of that, it's also like good products, which make sense for the office.
And certainly you practice what you preach, and it's incorporated into all the Buzzy spaces like where you are right now in Belgium.
We try. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the idea of healthy though, and healthy living is really important right now, and health and wellness is going to be, it already has been, but will become in the forefront of what workplace design is. I know that one tenet of a healthy workspace is biophilia. And it's really been found to reduce stress, enhance creativity, clarity of thought, improve well-being, expedite healing. And with that, we'd love for you to go into one of your first introductions, which of course is right behind you, the Buzzy Planter.
Yes, that's on my right or your left. I don't know if it's like the picture. So yes, indeed. So don't forget, it's already our third product in biophilia. So we were even producing and preaching the biophilia before the word came out. First, we had our printed skin, which we had a lot of greens and a lot of jungle prints. After that, we had, as you remember, 2 years ago already, we came up with the reindeer moss in a product that was designed by our friend Corey Grosso. And now we said, okay, let's go one step further, because what is another place where we still can add some acoustics to a room? And then all of a sudden it was like the aha moment, and we said a planter. Also maybe because I needed planters for my home as well.
Well, but of course, I mean, I know you just touched on it, but you know, the Buzzy Planter still has a duality of function, because all of your products, so it's both a planter, but it's still very much part of an acoustical product that will help in, you know, open spaces in the workplace.
Yes, and so it's not only for acoustics, because we have also done a lot of now tests with the product itself. And as you see on this side, so the yellow one is already high, depending on what kind of plant you put in it. It's also a perfect wayfinder, but it's also a new way of partitioning the office. Today, especially with COVID-19, people will have to get new ways of walking down the alleys of the office. So I think that also there we can do three things. We bring biophilia in the office, we have acoustics, and also it makes the flow in the corridors and easier to understand. Instead of putting all these little arrows in plastic on the floor, you can create a natural flow with natural elements. Yes.
And be more dynamic about it too, in terms of how you design wayfinding in a space.
Absolutely, but again, we give the ingredients and we let the originality and also the dynamics to our users, being the architects and the interior designers and also specifiers. Yes, absolutely.
So you want the designers to come up with the recipe. You give the ingredients, they come up with the recipe.
Exactly. You know, they have to do things with our products that we didn't even realize that was possible. So that's what we like about being in a direct contact with those people, because they give us also good new ideas.
I mean, so you're always in touch with designers. I mean, you're listening to what their needs are and sort of taking that, and then obviously coming up with new products such as Buzzy Planter. So, I mean, I think any brand has to be sort of open to that.
But it's also coming from my personal interest, I think, because it's not only designers in our business, but I like also fashion designers. Not that I'm wearing a lot of fashion, but I like what is happening there, especially for new colors, trends coming up. Also in the automotive sector, again, there is so much more into design. For example, all the new cars that are now coming up on the market, even new trucks, whatever. Look at Tesla, what they did with the new pickup van. So there is a lot of things that you can find out there, not only, and especially not only in the sector that we are working. Absolutely. But
I mean, we certainly feel the same way. I mean, design, it's design with a capital D, but whether it's interior design, fashion design, it's all sort of falls in this world of creativity, and there should definitely be a lot of crossover, and there is. Yes. But, you know, you touched on something in terms of color, which I've always really admired BuzziSpace, because you guys have been really fearless sometimes in the colors that you use. And you know, how do you develop what I like to deem the Buzzy palette?
Well, initially, when we started, we wanted to stand out, and that was the time 2007, 2008, 9, 10, when there was this other crisis coming up. We wanted to stand out with products in vivid colors, and we tried at that time. It was also the flashy green that we did, even the pink, the oranges, so that were the first colors, and that was to stand out. I think today we have a complete team of internal interior designers and product developers, and they have such a great taste in the palette. They go out themselves, so it's like a combination of what all the people come with, and now when we try to be just before the trend, like for example with the velvets, also there it was coming, I believe it was from the fashion industry, already using it, and we have a lot of fashionistas in the company, so they came up with the idea, why not try it on furniture? And yes, BuzziSpace is the one to try it out. Remember, it was in 2010, 2011 when we did it with the plaid. Remember, was our first show for Neocon, and then we had all the Buzzy hoods in all different plaids made in a little mill in the UK. So it was, we try, and we fail sometimes with errors, but it's always fun.
Well, but it's not always just about color. I mean, a lot of times it's also about the scale. I know you said the planters come in a lot of different sizes, but also in terms of some of the other pieces, like your second introduction, which is Buzzy Jet Standing, Yeah, which is right above your head, of course. And, you know, it's interesting because you mentioned car design, and there is sort of a very aerodynamic design that comes out of this Buzzy Jet standing, correct?
Yes. So the jet standing, it comes from our other jet, which is like, it was a pendant. And there it's very important to say that we were lucky to have almost today a complete team of Philips, of the Philips group, who were working in the neighborhood of where we are based. Also, Eindhoven is closed. So, and since they were closing down factories and companies in their group, we were able to do the cherry picking and to find the best people coming from there with a lot of experience, and that we were able to hire and to bring into our company. We really minimum, we invested 2 years in starting to get to understand the lighting business. So creating new products, always like with the extra touch of acoustics. And only after 2 years, we decided to launch big time, and then it was an immediate hit. And I am also very proud to say that the most of the products that are successful are also in-house designed. So there also we are very, very proud and happy and healthy.
Yeah, so we know that designers really love both sort of versatility and flexibility, and I think the Buzzy Jet standing offers that because it can be moved around given any sort of space. And you know, it'll be interesting to see moving forward how flexible, even more so, workspaces have to become.
Yes, because last year we started to promote it. I did a tour with our own regional sales managers throughout the US, and we started to show some renders of this product, and really everybody was in love with the product. There are beautiful features, also little accents. So the cable is, you can choose colors. So if you want to make an extra accent of color, also there again, it's possible, feasible, and we let it again to our customers to make it as crazy as possible.
I know that you're always out there, and I think a lot of the Buzzy team are out there really listening to what the needs are. Do you know, and have you already seen sort of a shift in the conversation in terms of what's going to be needed for the future workplace?
I think the biggest question is, what is the future workplace? I think the first 2 weeks, everybody was like, oh no, working from home. And already today, people are getting used to it, including myself. I think the future of the office, I think it will be more like the trophy place where people can come together, when it's allowed to be closer together, to more intimate, to have more an exchange of ideas, more like an idea tank, rather than a place where that is like just to work. Because I believe that the way how we work today is very efficient. Going from one meeting into the other with all the Zooms and the Teams and all the others that now exist, it's very efficient. On the other hand, of course, there is not enough time anymore to have a nice chat at the coffee machine. So that's something that people are missing. And I believe that will be the office of the future, maybe. That the place where you can come happy and healthy together to have these conversations that are not done anymore via this kind of communication, via the online communication. Because it's like really, you go in a meeting, there is no time anymore for the chit chat, and it's immediately up, we start off. And if you have a meeting at 9, at 9:01, the meeting is actually going on. No?
Well, at least we've become more efficient, if anything, but it will be absolutely interesting to see what happens with the future of the workplace. I know that you are very tuned in to what that's going to be, and to obviously offer and really help the needs of your designers and architects out there. But I know that BuzziSpace always leads with design, and that's exactly why, you know, you're so respected in the market. And Steve, I like to say thank you so much for your time today. It was really great to hear about Buzzy Planter and Buzzy Jet standing, and certainly we want our audience to look towards BuzziSpace for your new introduction. So thank you for being here.
It was our pleasure. Thank you.
welcome to Product Live. I'm Rebecca Thienes. I'm the market editor at Interior Design, and Product Live is our series where we get to delve into the trends that are grabbing the industry and a chance to meet the minds behind the design. So today, I'm really glad to welcome Ginger Gilbert. Ginger is the Vice President of Product Design and Development at Bentley Mills. Ginger, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.
And us.
I wonder if we could just start with a brief overview of Bentley Mills. I know that you guys recently celebrated 40 years in business, founded in 1979 in California. So perhaps you could just talk about Bentley a little bit and then what you do there.
Yeah, so like you said, Bentley started in 1979, and we started here in Southern California, and we still reside here in Southern California. We're kind of last man standing out here. But because of that, the company has really embraced a unique culture, and we're kind of set up in a way that we're almost like a boutique mill. We're small enough to be very flexible. We're also, because of our heritage here in California and our LA roots, we've always been focused on sustainability from the day we started. So sustainability and design, and then just culture of how our marketing team markets, it's all kind of tied into one. And we've been lucky enough to have leadership throughout Bentley's long career here in California that we've been able to kind of push. It's hard when you have all the other carpet mills on one coast and we're on another, but in a way it's a little liberating because we can just kind of forge down our own path. So that's been very exciting. So we've had some wonderful people working here at Bentley, people who have been here 30 plus years, still remain here at Bentley. And so that kind of makes Bentley who we are. So there's almost like a family pride to our products that everyone has an eye on. So we're very excited to still be able to stay here.
That's fantastic. Well, of course, we're here to talk about your new collection. So let's get into that. I know it's called Invisible Visionaries, which is a bit of a tongue twister. So hopefully I say it correctly.
I'll mess it up at one point. That's okay.
So the specific products are Allegro and Interlude, so that gives us a little taste of what's to come. But I wonder if you could talk about your inspiration for this collection.
Yeah. It's a little bit of a long story. I'll try to make it short. Bentley's always been known kind of as a little higher end aesthetic. We're not known for education carpet or healthcare carpet, wellness carpet. And that's something that when we go back into our orders, we have a lot of education products and wellness projects that we've been specified on. So we wanted to make sure that we addressed that need, especially right now. And so when we decided to do something for Neocon, we said, well, let's create like a suite of products that has different price points and different installation requirements. And so that's what we did. We created a group of 5 products, and as we were trying to decide what those were going to be, we landed on 5, and then said, let's kind of research who else has to design the way we have to do for all these performance levels and all these price points. And so we started researching. I think we looked at the automobile industry, and being here in LA, we looked at set design, production, that type of thing. That seemed kind of obvious, but it led us to the ballet, which is, a little off path. But we started looking at costume design, and there are some amazing costume designers: Holly Hines, Paul Tazaway, Mark Happel. Mark Happel is the director of costumes for the New York City Ballet. And Holly Hines has worked with about every ballet. And then Paul, if anybody doesn't know Paul, Paul did all the amazing costumes for Hamilton, among other things. So he's amazing. So we started watching videos and looking at how they create. And it's very similar to designing carpet. You have to design for, let's say if you're doing the ballet, you have to design for a particular ballet. And that may be our brand on our end. and then you have to design for whatever the character is or in that ballet. And, so we look at, all the aesthetic things, but then also the performance. So that has to be like the dancer. So if you're designing a costume for Misty Copeland, who is super athletic, or Suzanne Farrell, it's different. It's just different, and you have to design differently. And so we kind of found more parallels than we thought we would find.
Right.
So we kind of dove into that and looked at all the tools of their trade and looked at all the textiles, since we were actually a textile for the floor, looked at the textiles, and we had a lot of fun really manipulating those and seeing how they would work and embracing the performance side. So if you look at Allegro, what we did is we took tulle and fishnet stockings. We started playing with all those and ripping them up and really seeing how they get beat up during a performance, because as fragile and delicate as costumes have to be for the ballet, they have to go through just such a rigorous performance night after night after night and dancer after dancer. So we had a lot of fun kind of, I'm not a fan of the word deconstructing, but kind of deconstructing. We would just we abused all these beautiful, delicate fabrics and components. Right. And that's how we came up with Allegro. And then with Interlude, we really looked at Mark Happel with the New York City Ballet. He actually trained Daniel Day-Lewis for the Phantom Thread. So we actually watched that documentary and started looking at how they're pleating and stitching. And so that's how Interlude came about, is we actually looked at the energy and the movement of pleats as it's moving throughout a dance or a performance. So so those are the two products that we're launching first. So it's almost like an act one. And then we have 3 other products that we will launch in different segments. So I think, if we were going to NeoCon, we would have probably launched all 5 at the same time. What we thought is it's a little more digestible to launch just a couple at a time. So we're kind of creating an act 1, an act 2, and an act 3.
Oh, I love that. What gives us a little bit to look forward to. So we have a preview with Interlude and Allegro, and then we have more to come. So.
Yes, we do.
So, speaking to the design community, I'm sure there are a lot of details that go into the construction. What kind of materiality do you seek out? And we were talking so much about performance, so it has to look great, but it has to perform well. So what kinds of baked in details do you have in this design?
Yeah, so, everybody wants that really beautiful high-end aesthetic, but they wanted it to perform, like it was, a rock. So we kind of took all of that into play. And, the first 2 products are color point products, and that's a wonderful machine to work on. It allows us to place color and pattern just the right way. So really, honestly, all the manufacturers have pretty much the same machines. So it's all the separate components, to your point. And so we use type 6/6 nylon. And we use for this particular project, we actually used a mix of Vista Antron and then Universal, so that we had difference. Every fiber has a different asset. So one, maybe it's clearer color. So when in the products that we need to have clearer color, we use one or the other. And then one is maybe a little more innovative, and you're able to do more yarn processing and create new processes. So that's what we did, is we really played with yarn processing and making sure that we were able to get pile heights that were low enough to really perform, but still give that beautiful texture that Bentley's known for.
Right. And do the patterns themselves lend themselves to different environments, or some kind of more for larger scale projects and some more for maybe a smaller area? Or how do you kind of approach?
Yeah, they do. So of the 5 products that we've been working on for Invisible Visionaries, we have, these 2 are the largest patterns. So they're kind of the wow runway patterns. Okay. And then we have 3 more textures, and one is more, kind of that bread and butter go everywhere product. And then one is kind of a mid-range texture. And then the other one is built to be a very high-end product that you would use in maybe executive areas or conference rooms. So we wanted to look at it through the designer's eyes, because we don't want to create green animals and say, here's your plate of products. But we did want to create a variety of products where the designers could use the same collection in just different areas and not have to go out in search of colors that would not work with one another. So we wanted to keep the designer in mind and really create that suite of products.
The colors that you mentioned, the images that I've seen, it's very graphic. It's blacks, whites, grays. Is that kind of throughout the collection? And is that also a nod to kind of the dramatic arts, or where were you going with that?
We did. We started with the usual suspects, the black, the white, and the gray, and we went there first. But then we didn't necessarily go, everybody was expecting a pink. We didn't go there. We actually went and looked at, all the costumes. If you look at all the costumes, they're very beautiful. There's a lot of very beautiful satins and velvets and brocades. And so we went to all the components of costumes and looked, and there's, beautiful olive greens, and we see a lot of blues. So we have a lot of blues, and you're going to see that as they go through the products, as we launch them. Some will be different values. So you'll have some that are a brighter blue, and then some that are very grayed out and beautifully kind of chameleon blues that can go anywhere.
Love that. So we've got color to look forward to. There's 12 color turtles, so I'm sure there's some surprises coming.
We've had fun with this. We didn't want to, especially with Allegro and Interlude, there's so much pattern going on. We really didn't want to go crazy with color, because we wanted the patterns to be able to speak for themselves. There's a lot there, but then we wanted to be able to carry color through the ones that maybe are just textures. So very excited about that. And we're excited about this product. With visible visionaries. See, there you go, I messed it up. Looking at, we don't normally hear costume designers' names, and and honestly, the normal person wouldn't know Diane Hahn or Reyes Barraza, but they're the designers who did these products. So we kind of wanted to really put that out there, that we understand that there's a lot of designers and architects out there who they're invisible visionaries. They're the ones who, are out there putting their blood, sweat, and tears into a project. And, the normal person that walks into an office or a hotel, they don't know who did that project. So, we really wanted to embrace that and embrace, not only the people who create these things, but also those projects where they don't get a lot of praise, or the products that don't get a lot of praise. We do have a product in the line that is just a very low texture. It's not a wow product, but it's that product that will go everywhere. So it's kind of that unsung hero, I guess. And so that's kind of what we wanted to celebrate here.
I love that. Well, so behind the scenes is very important, and we need to applaud those people as much as those that are kind of in the center. So I just wonder, quickly, is there anything that you hope to tackle in the near future? Any products that are kind of coming to mind in these times that we're finding ourselves in, that you're hoping to get into?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we do a lot in wellness. It's just, we're not when you first think of wellness, we're not that go-to brand. And so, we want people to realize that we do put a lot of thought, a lot of research into each product that we do. So whether it is K through 12 or wellness, so we're gonna really highlight that this year, and show that we do have that product, and show that I want to embrace the fact that product can be value, but it can also be beautiful. Those are the harder products to work on, but they're the most rewarding. And I think they're the most appreciated at the end of the day by our designers and architects, because you do want to specify in an area where maybe you don't have a high budget. You do want to specify something beautiful. So that's something that we're going to really focus on this year, is making sure, again, that we have suites of products that work well at different price points. And then the designers can use them where they want to use them, as long as we build them correctly. So.
Right, correct. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Ginger. I just want to thank you for joining us and for giving us an overview of Invisible Visionaries, the new collection of commercial carpets from Bentley. And I just want to thank everyone for tuning in, and to please join us again next time for Product Live. Thank you.
You know, one of my favorite books was King's Views of New York, because it had all these great photographs from the turn of the century, all these beautiful buildings that made up the fabric of New York. I noticed this building from when I was in college, and I noticed that it had domes on the top of the towers. It was built in 1893, I think it was, as a department store, the U. O'Neill department store. So I was curious as to what happened to the domes. You know, then it turns out we were asked to work on the design of this building. But it's a very sensitive thing when you're doing additions in landmark districts. But I said, I think that if we put back these domes, I think everybody will be so thrilled that they'll let us put as much floor area on as we can.
I will never forget, the two domes came to New York from Long Island on a flatbed truck. They closed down all the traffic on 6th Avenue, and they let us sit on the roof of the building as these domes came up. It was on the front page of the New York Times. It was on a Saturday. And I just felt that how extraordinary our profession is, that we can be giving the city back something that it had lost.
And those domes are just magnificent. Hugh O'Neill is thanking you from the heavens, that's for sure.
We do a lot of urban architecture, and the urban fabric is really very important to us.
The context. It's, you know, you look at buildings and you look at their fabric, you look at their massing, you look, you know, and you try to borrow from that and integrate it into a new language.
People identify with the building that they live in. So we've always wanted to create homes that are unique and inspiring and really elevate that building type.
It's the wow factor. That's what we do.
This is a wowzer like I haven't seen before.
There was no architecture in residential design, you know, from like the 50s to the 90s even. You know, every building looked exactly the same.
And so we became known as the specialist who could maximize the value for a developer, but also to create different kind of housing.
How many buildings have you actually worked on?
New construction and restoration and adaptive reuse, it's 83 buildings.
Unbelievable.
All right, well, there's 23 East 22nd Street, there's 2628 Broadway,
425 East 13th,
12
25
East
West
13th
Hampstead
106
Street,
East 74th
242 East,
Street,
West 53rd.
200 East 79th Street.
I grew up in this city, in New York City, in Queens. But the thing is that when I was growing up, our house was full of tools because everybody in my family, my mother's brothers, everyone seemed to be involved in building, in construction. You know, I would just be always building things. The connection that I made to architecture was about much more the pragmatic part of, you know, creating shelter. But what happened was then, as a part of the course study with the history of architecture, I was exposed to the Renaissance. And that was where the first time where I put together what it really meant to be an architect and what you could create, where you could combine the art of architecture with the building of buildings. It was just a revelation to me.
Well, I, from the very beginning, always wanted to be an artist with a capital A. And so I went to Bard College. I had my own studio in the middle of the woods, and it was really my heart's content. After a year, I decided to switch to art history. So they said, go to NYU, where suddenly I was living with all these buildings around me. And this light bulb went off in my head that said, I don't want to study architectural history. I want to be an architect.
And actually, there's a Juliet balcony from the master bedroom.
I get to have that alone time and collaborative time and really create, yet I'm dealing with things that relate to the city, to how people live. And the most amazing part of it was, that's where I met John.
Wait, so how did you guys meet?
Well, there was a bodega that was across the street from City College at the time. It was on Broadway and 135th Street. I went across the street to get lunch one day, and I see this girl, you know, standing in line in front of me with this curly, wavy hair, you know. She turned around and gave me this smile like it just melted me, you know. Aww. And I said, I have to get to know that, you know, that person. So I just followed her around.
He did. You know, in all of John's drawings, he'd always put one little person, you know, with curly hair, waving. We worked as a team at Perkins & Will. And then we really realized that we wanted to have our own firm. We have an amazing team of 92 people, and so it's a lot of minds and a lot of thoughts. You know, there's tons of firms who do amazing design, but I think we have a unique combination of the technical aspects of architecture and the art of architecture and the beauty of architecture all rolled into one.
So this is Walker Tower.
Yes, all of this metal work here was original, so it's all been restored.
Thank you. Obviously this wasn't here, right?
No, the only thing that was here was the shape of this space.
So those weren't original either?
No, that's not original.
So how much floor space did you add?
It was about 25,000 square feet.
That's amazing.
It's so characteristic of a 1930s building.
That's Ralph?
Yeah. Part of the pride that we have with that building is that people look at it and they don't know exactly what Ralph did and what Cetra Ruddy did.
We started looking at the urban context, and it was the era when adaptive reuse really started, and we became experts in it. So we really studied these great turn-of-the-century buildings, and we learned how to build a better mousetrap.
It's not just preservation, but it's also looking at these buildings to see what we can do to enhance them. You can bring something back, you can reinterpret.
And we're always looking to find those special things that add value and delight.
No developer will ever just let you use the most expensive material. You know, it has to feel right.
And I will fight for things. So the word luxury, you know, when people say, because a lot of the projects people know about us are luxury, and they are, and we do luxury really well. Mm-hmm. Luxury to us is about craft.
You know, in the end, people really appreciate that kind of concern about how they live.
In looking at our work for the last 30 years, I really believe because of our commitment to housing, we have taken the typology and moved it from a very utilitarian building type to something that can create inspiration and excitement and community. One of the uniquenesses of Lincoln Square Synagogue is the whole building is about translucency, transparency, and interweaving of the private and the reaching out to a community.
At night when the lights come up, it's just, you get that feeling. You see the energy from the light is just pouring out.
John and I have such similar priorities about what a space or what a building should be. He always says I'm his hardest critic, but I'll see him working like with his glasses pulled down and he's solving problems, and it's magic to me, you know. So to have that and without any politic is the greatest luxury that a designer can have.
You know, we're partners in everything. Sharing the pen, you know.
Hey everybody, this is Cindy Allen, and we're back live with my dear friends, John Cetra and Nancy Ruddy. Hi guys.
Hi guys, how are you?
How you doing?
So happy to see you live after showing that beautiful documentary on your work. But checking in on you, first of all, where are you?
We're in our brownstone in Brooklyn, in Park Slope, and it's so interesting because during this time, everyone thought that we would be up in the country. We have a little cottage in Rhinebeck in Dutchess County, and we just felt we needed to be close. Even though we went remote and we have 100 people scattered all over, we just felt we needed to be close. So we're sitting in our living room in our 1897 brownstone, and what's in back of us, it's interesting because as we sat down, you know, I said to John, you know, it's interesting that we're sitting here, but my mother, who was the most amazing, artistic, amazing person, she collected antiques. And what's in back of us is what's called a Depression era quilt. And what people know about American quilts is they're brightly colored and they're patterned. But during the years of the Depression, there wasn't anything other than essentials. So people made their quilts, because they didn't go to the store to buy, you know, bed linen, out of suits that had just been totally worn down, that had holes in them, that you know, you couldn't use anymore. So this is the quilt that you know, we've had in our family, you know, from my mother, and when she passed away, you know, we've had it. John and I have had it in our home for, you know, almost 40 years. So that's where we are.
And so appropriate, right?
Yeah.
We should all be making a quilt, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I have to say, it's so amazing to see you guys, and you know, it's like I feel you right away. I feel your energy and your love. And so, tell me, how are things in Brooklyn?
Things are not so bad right here. We live right half a block from Prospect Park, so Nancy and I can get up every morning. We try to get out into the park, take a walk, and get some air, just to start the day, because, you know, being home all the time, you want something that's going to kind of break up, you know, the day, because many times we're in our separate offices and we don't even see each other almost the entire day. You know, you can really kind of get totally involved. So so we're here, you know, and Brooklyn is we're right around here. It's been okay. You know, everybody's maintaining social distance. Some of the grocery stores are open, which are nearby, and so we can get whatever we need. You know, and so it's been pretty good. You know, we have good internet connections and here, and so we can work pretty well, and not be too far from other family members, you know, who are also in the area.
It makes so much sense. I'm just thinking about you being there, and it makes so much sense to all the viewers out there who've just watched the documentary, and how much you've affected the landscape of New York, how connected you are, and how much you've made New York so much better. So what do you feel right now, just in terms of wanting to continue that and, you know, taking care of our beloved city?
Yeah. Well, you know, I think that, you know, New York clearly is our home, and we're all getting to see buildings in a really different way. You know, we're not getting to see anything on the inside. And so walking down the street, you know, when we all take our walks and things like that, I think people are seeing the city a lot more than they did before, when there's hustle bustle and there's taxi cabs and things like that. And I think that, you know, what we have been focusing on, you know, over the last 5 weeks is first the health and safety of our team. You know, that's really been the first thing. And then
how are they?
Everyone is doing
well,
pretty well. You know, for us, it's how do you know, and you know, Cindy, you're a very physical person, and we're physical, and we deal with tactile things. And so, and I'm a very physical person, and I believe that a tap on the shoulder from someone who cares about you is essential, and it's who who I am. So how do you do that with 100 people, many of whom are single and are in small apartments? So we have established, I mean, we've been having a lot of fun, and in that we do a morning inspirational email, and we do it round robin. Every day a different person does. And by 7:45, 8:45, when we start our day, that person either sends something out that's spiritual, that's funny, that's relevant, that's something they read, that is music. And we all start our day like that. And it begins a chat that goes throughout the day, which is really great. And you know, and then, you know, we're doing all the fun things that everyone is doing. The most fun thing we've been doing is Friday afternoons, we do, you know, a get together, 100 people on that little Zoom grid, you know, and Meredith in our office and her team have thought of topics. So we've done one week, we had to come with a book we're reading or a favorite book, and we've each told why or read something from it. Then there was like the silly, you know, what's your favorite t-shirt, or, you know, what's your favorite, you know, this or that. And but last week we have our partner Eugene, who you know, who has jet black hair, and he's phenomenally handsome, too handsome for anyone's good.
Not fair. It's not fair.
I know, not fair. And he's been that way for 20 years. So he started growing a beard, and it's all white. And so we've all been kidding him. So suddenly this week we saw gray roots. So I started kidding him, and then we turned this into, how's your hair doing? You know, nothing intellectual, but how's your hair doing? We were on the phone for like an hour and a half, and everyone had so much fun. So we're trying to add fun. And then the biggest thing for us is, how do you keep people inspired and passionate, you know, and effective, you know, when we typically work in groups. So our house is now piled with boxes of samples, because we're still designing. So a designer will send me a sample and her a sample, you know, or him a sample. And so we're finding our way, you know, so we're doing fine. I can't wait to get my hands on people and touch the textures and new ways of presenting as well, that I'm sure everyone in the design world is, because we have this thing, we will not send a design to someone electronically to look at it. We want to be there, you know. And so the issue of sending boxes of samples and labeling them, and then having them put it on their table instead of on my table. So
are you guys on Material Bank? Are you guys?
Yes.
Yeah, you are.
We are.
Yeah.
We are.
It's very helpful right now, especially.
It is so beyond helpful. It's so curated, you know. It really helps our designers, and even the boxes are beautiful, Cindy.
That's the point. Really, the whole thing is inspirational. Okay, I want to get to something that so people received, if they received it at home, so they received the big idea issue, and it came polybagged. We polybagged all the issues. But I was really excited because one of your amazing projects is in it, Photografisca. So I wanted to talk a little bit about it, since it's happening right now. It's a beautiful historic building in New York that, as you said, now maybe people are strolling by and really notice the building and the history. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the history first and the project?
Okay.
So the project, we've actually been working on it now for a couple of years. And it came to us through one of our contacts and who we've been doing a business with. And And it seemed like such an amazing project because we knew the building. I'd been in that building 20 years ago, and I remember walking in there and thinking, this is such an incredibly beautiful building. The inside was a dump. I mean, it had been totally
Can you put that in an
destroyed.
Architectural term, John?
No, it's a dump. And you know, it was with a lot of small offices and people sitting, you know, one on top of the other. And I thought, what a shame. It's like there was no detail left. Whatever it might have been was not there. You could imagine because when you see the outside of the building, you imagine that it could be so incredible.
Right, except
and
you also,
really,
if you worked around there, you passed by that building 100 times, 1,000 times, and it was always boarded up or closed. This beautiful building.
Yeah.
It's so strange. We all accepted that it was never going to open again, you know?
Right.
And
it was this little jewel box, and we all wondered, what is that? What's going on inside there? So to be able to take that little jewel and reimagine it and give it back to the city, because we have hundreds of people contacting us all the time saying, I never noticed that building. We did.
Right.
You would notice it. You know. But it's really about, when you say what about the city, it's really about giving something back to the city, because you know, one of the really interesting things about it is that when this is our first museum, so obviously so exciting. And the Berman brothers, who are the two owners of Photographisco, which is a contemporary art museum, photography
cool
museum.
Cats, right, from Sweden, right? The two cool brothers, right?
Yeah. Right. The two cool brothers, and their story is amazing. That their father worked in the darkroom in the local Stockholm newspaper, and that's how they got exposed to photography. So, so they're very independent thinkers, and we got introduced to them, and they saw our work, and they said, "You're the ones." And we felt very humble. We've never, you know, done a museum, but our work is about creating magical, memorable experiences.
And it's about doing every project differently. You know, we get to the DNA of the client, of the building, and approach it in a totally new way. So we don't have a formula. There's no specific formula that we're going to follow. And you know, that you see that in our work. Every project is different because of that general philosophy of how we approach it. And so doing a museum, a photography museum, especially in this building, was such an extraordinary opportunity, because it wasn't just going to be a museum. It was going to be it's really a cultural event. It's like something that is happening all the time. You can go there to eat, you can go there to buy a book, you can go hang out, you can see art, you can go to a show or, you know, an exhibit or a talk or whatever.
Artist in residence, TED Talks.
It was going to be something that was so amazing to think that this, you know, you could do something like this, you know, in the city. When we went to Stockholm and saw what they were doing there, we were just blown away by, you know, the excitement that was being created in this building, in this venue. And so when they came to this project, to this building, we wanted to bring that excitement, you know, to the building.
Yeah, it's like a very young vibe, very rock and roll. You would never expect. You think a museum, you think completely white, but it's the opposite.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. It exactly was. You know, it was the opposite. And you know, we think also, when you think of contemporary art spaces, you think about how light is supposed to impact the space. And one of the first things that Jan said is, I don't want any natural light in the galleries. You know,
you're like, what?
Well, yeah, like really, you know, and so, but then, you know, we really embraced that idea,
right.
and so it so that created an even more intense environment, you know, for seeing the photography. But it also did something which we thought, well, what are we going to do if we're creating like a container inside this building? And the building has, you know, the exterior walls are very, very deep. There are multiple layers of carved limestone around the windows. What are you going to see when you look into the windows? You know, when you see from the street, what are you going to see? And so the idea came that it's the other side. So there's this, we created a contemporary facade within this beautiful building, but it was not more architectural, but it was graphic, and it had movement, and it was accentuated by the lighting at night. You know, the entire exterior of the building is, you know, very carefully illuminated. So that was, I mean, just so it blew everybody's mind that, you know,
yeah,
you could do this idea.
Yeah, it's like kind of
You know?
like you broke the rules. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Although, you know, it's really interesting because there's been this argument between architects and curators from the beginning of time. And if you read about the design of the Guggenheim Museum or the original Whitney, that Frank Lloyd Wright wanted light, you know, and the curators did not. And you go to every great museum, you see these amazing windows and there's Mecco shades all over them or something like that. Yeah. So when we interviewed Stock, we showed all these pictures of all these spaces we had designed, this inside, outside connectivity, and like first sentence, as Jan said, no, we do not want any light in the building. So it was like,
oh my God, you're
like, oh my gosh, I lost that commission. But as John said, we worked with, you know, amazing, you know, audiovisual consultants. And what happens is you can see the exhibit on the outside of the building, and these deep framed windows, we always call them apertures from the very beginning. So you can be going by in a cab or walking by and you see some of this amazing photography. So it's really this multimedia, you know, experience, and it's
an art installation in and of itself.
Yeah.
You know, it's curated and it changes, and it's very, very carefully done. So it's just something that you haven't ever seen in the building in New York.
Yeah, there's a well, we should say, because I don't want people to I want them to know that it was an old mission too, right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of fantastic when you think about that. But there's so much energy in the building, and there's lots to do, right? And I love how you've laid out the experience, because you actually go down the stairs to different floors, right?
Right. And you work your way through. And what's interesting in the design is that we wanted that connectivity to have, you know, an open space where you could see everyone in the building, but the footprint is so tiny and we had such a large program to fit in. So what we did is we enlarged the stair, the fire stair basically, and created and used that as further exhibition space. And part of the thing was going to be, they said, in Stockholm, nobody uses the elevator. Everyone will walk. And I said, I'm not so sure if in New York, people are going to walk up 6 flights of stairs. So we had to make that an amazing experience unto itself. So basically, you take the elevator up to the 6th floor.
You go up, and then you walk down. Wait,
you get your drink.
Right.
Yeah. You know, you get your drink, and then you work your way through, and the stair becomes a whole different kind of experience. And again, the photography that's happening from visitors on that stair, it's where the Instagram moments are happening. And you sort of, we never really designed for that, but everyone talks about it. Where's the Instagram moment? And those stairs, because the exhibits change, is your experience. If you come every 6 weeks, it will be a totally different experience.
We only have a few minutes left, so I want to make sure we talk about how you used a really, like, almost the best spot in the house is the top space, which was the worst spot in the house, and how you uncovered it.
Yeah, well, because I don't know if you ever saw the before photographs of that space. It was, everything was covered up with plaster, white plaster.
And sheetrock.
There was a little emergency stair that went up to the roof. It didn't look like anything that you saw. I climbed up this little stair and saw that there was an attic up above it, this beautiful triangular space. And Teresa Genovese from our office and I went walking around the building, thought, if we open up this entire space, this could be incredible, because the terracotta that is used on the infill, it's a cast iron cast iron frame building with this terracotta infills, which had not been touched in over 100 years. So they were the natural color, beautiful terracotta color. And so if it could all be opened up, you'd have an extraordinary experience with that space. So
it's
that's
amazing.
exactly what we did. We literally stripped everything, all the plaster off, exposed everything. Our structural engineer reinforced the building, and all the steel is fireproofed now. But the experience up there is like nothing that that you could ever see. I mean, it's a very cinematic kind of space, because it's a kind of space that you could see in a movie, that in a set, but it is, because of the drama and the intimacy of it, it's again, and it's just like the rest of the building, where it's multiple layers of spaces, because you're standing there, you're looking up and you're seeing through the steel, these cast iron columns with rivets and up into the terracotta. It's just a beautiful experience.
It's kind of drop dead there. It's drop dead gorgeous, and also it allowed for something that happens these days as well, which different kind of events. It was almost like waiting for you to discover that, which I think is so cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that idea. That it's that discovery that you create these unique experiences. It makes it even better than it could ever be.
Well, I know you collaborated on 2 other spaces, the Chapel Bar and the Veronica Restaurant.
It was a really great experience, because we, as the architects of the building, we knew that there was going to be a restaurant and a bar. And so before we had anyone on board, we did the same exploration and got that space ready to express itself for whoever the restaurateur was going to be. And so one of the exciting things was that we found this amazing stained glass that was hidden in a mechanical room. So we had it restored. We brought it to the space. We located it in an area where we thought would be wonderful for a restaurant. And then Stephen Starr came in, and Roman and Williams came in to design the Chapel Bar and the restaurant. And it was this great collaboration, because they are unbelievably creative, and as are we. And so it was really a dreamy relationship. And we so love the eccentric quality they've added to the diversity of the experience of Photographica. So it was absolutely great.
Yeah.
Well, listen, it's such it was almost like, why didn't we have a space like this before in New York? And now we do. And now we want to own it and enjoy it and be part of it. And it's all because of you. Now, this is what I want to know. What's the latest count on the buildings that you've worked on in the city?
Well, I think it's over 90 now.
Over 90.
Over
90 buildings.
When we counted it the last time, it was like we were about 85, I think.
Yeah.
So
95.
So I would
95.
say 95.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to do the countdown to 100 buildings designed by Cetra Ruddy or renovated. Unbelievable. You guys are amazing, changing the face of New York forever. Our beloved New York. And you are there, hanging in there with New York. I'm sending you big virtual hugs, you guys. Big
virtual hug to you too.
And Cindy, I have to say, during this really difficult time that the world is having, the role that you are playing and keeping us all connected. I talk to my colleagues and we check in on each other to see how we're doing, but you're the glue in our community. And I know that we all thank you. And I share my reading with my team and everything. And so, getting almost daily, I don't know how you do it, I don't know when you sleep, but getting those amazing little FOMO or those amazing pictures or those inspirational firms you didn't know about, it just keeps us all going and keeps us inspired. So we have to thank you. We really have to thank you.
Well, lots of love to our industry and to design, which will help get us beyond and through. That's for sure. I love you guys.
Love you too.
Bye.
See you in September.
Yeah.